As the mage's son and Lucian bantered back and forth, a figure emerged from behind Lucian and walked slowly and purposely towards the veil. Juliana stepped up to the veil and was about to cross over when Lucian reached out and grabbed her hand. Juliana winced as his hand tightened around the tender mark on her wrist. As he held her wrist, Juliana's mind flooded with thoughts of darkness once again, causing her to fall to her knees. Many feet stepped forward to go to her, but the mage's son reached out his hand to stop them. "You are not so powerful now, O mighty mage. Not now that I have one of your precious daughters of light within my deadly grip," Lucian sneered as he tightened his grip on Juliana's wrist, bearing into her the darkness that dwelt within through the mark on her wrist. Her family watched as Lucian knelt and whispered in Juliana's ear, "You will never cross this line again, and you know it. You know you are not a child of light. Your soul is imbued with darkness, which has made itself known by the marks on your skin. How can one truly be a child of light when one is so marred from within with darkness?" he hissed, as he wrenched Juliana's wrist, causing her to cry out in pain. "You don't belong to that world. You never did. All those things your parents said to you to make you believe they accepted you were lies. They hated the darkness in you, so much so they were willing to marry you off to the first noble knight that would take their pitiful daughter's hand in marriage, just to save her from the darkness. Why do you think they kept you locked up within the palace walls and made sure no one in the kingdom ever found out what you really were? They were ashamed of their daughter of darkness and afraid the kingdom would rebel against them if they ever found out what a dark spirit dwelt within the palace of the king and queen of light." Juliana sat there, listening to Lucian's words pour over her, each one piercing her heart and soul with their poignancy. She was unworthy. Her soul had been charred and stripped away by the darkness within, and it wasn't anything her parents could take away or get rid of. She could never be a pure daughter of light. She had traveled too far down the path of darkness to ever come back. Her kingdom and people would never accept her for who she was. She was too lost and too far gone. Nothing could reach her in these depths of darkness she had allowed herself to get sucked into. Juliana closed her eyes as a single tear fell from her face and landed in the dirt below. As her tear touched the earth, a strange and gentle breeze whipped around her. She breathed in the refreshing breeze, and instantly her mind was transported to another place. All around her, the luscious green grass of spring bent and rippled like waves in the breeze. A babbling brook tumbled over the rocks as it trickled forth from its frosty encasement of winter. Robins and bluebirds twittered a song of a new season. Leaves burst forth on the trees, and flowers rose up from the dead and barren earth. As Juliana sat there and took in the scene around her, a man who glowed with the light of the sun stood before her. Juliana looked up at the majestic man as he spoke. "Juliana, do you believe in the power of spring?" he asked as he knelt before her. "Of course I believe in the power of spring," she replied. "It is the essence of who my family is. It is everything my kingdom stands for. Without it, our realm would not exist. Nor would any of the other realms. Spring brings forth the power of rebirth and new life to the world. Without it, the world would continue to be a buried and hardened wasteland. But I did not ask what you thought the importance of spring was. I asked if you believed in the power of spring." "I don't understand," Juliana responded. "You said it was the essence of who your family was. Who do you think you are in relation to spring? Is it the essence of who you are?" Juliana looked down at her hands. She touched the mark that had defaced her wrist. She shook her head. "I'm afraid I don't have the same power as my family. I have too much darkness within me." "Juliana." The mage's son took her empty hands and covered them with his. He gently turned them over and placed his hands over hers in the dirt beneath her. "You are as much a daughter of spring as any member of your family. You are the essence of spring itself. You carry the magic of light and life within you, and what you create carries a beauty that surpasses most things because you know what it is to plunge into the depths of darkness and the struggle to push through the darkness to reach out and be touched by the sun." As the mage's son said the last words, he removed his hands and revealed a flower that bloomed beneath her hands. Juliana looked up at him, surprised to see a flower beneath her cupped hands. You did that, not me. The mage's son smiled and shook his head. You did that. Believe in the power of spring, Juliana. Believe. The mage's son breathed the last word into Juliana's heart, and all of a sudden it was like Juliana's whole world was filled with spring. Something changed within Juliana in that moment, and she felt herself being pulled out of the darkness within. As she touched the earth beneath her fingertips, the rocks and trees and every blade of grass carried with it the song of redemption and what it meant for the world to come forth in the brilliance of spring after the cold and barren season of winter. The feeling of new life tickled her fingertips and wound its way through her veins and seeped into her heart. The words of the ancient spring song that started their realm spilled out from her heart, and she started singing the long-forgotten words. Juliana's song came to an end, and everyone in the valley stood silent and still for a long moment. Juliana looked up to see everyone staring at her. The mage's son smiled at her and reached out his hand. Juliana, you are free. Juliana smiled. She took a step forward to cross the veil. As she did, Lucian grabbed hold of her yet again to prevent her from crossing. The rising sun cast its light on a crimson line beneath her feet. You cannot deny the ancient power of the blood that covered this line years ago, Lucian. Its power is far greater than anything you could ever conjure or imagine, the mage's son said, as he stretched out his hand again to Juliana. It cannot contain those whose lives it covers. Juliana wavered as she looked at Lucian, unsure of what would happen if she crossed. She looked back into the eyes of the mage's son. His gentle gaze reached into her heart and soul and gave her the confidence to continue. Juliana placed her hand in the strong hand of the mage's son and took one final step across the line, entering into a world of beauty and light.